8:30 and the Senate Public Health and Welfare Committee is now called to order. First up on our agenda is a hearing on House Bill 2386. So we will call that hearing to order. First on the agenda is a bill overview from the Revisor's Office is Jenna Moyer.
Thank you for your patience. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee, and Connor helped me out. This is House Bill 2386. The vote on this in the House was 118-3, which I usually write down, but I forgot to this morning. And this is a bill about dental benefits, and I hope you'll bear with me. It's an insurance bill, and I'm not an insurance revisor, so if there's any really specific nitpicky questions, I hope you save those all for the conferees, the hardest ones. And this bill would establish requirements and restrictions for the payment and reimbursements of dental services. And the first section is mostly just definitions, and I'll go through those piecemeal as I go through the relevant portions of the bill. And section 2 of the bill relates to a term that's referred to as network leasing, and it would allow a contracting entity, which is a person or entity that enters into a contract with a provider for dental services, including a third-party administrator. And a provider is an individual or entity that provides dental services. So you can think of provider as a dentist. And so this contracting entity may grant access to a third party to the provider's network contract or the dental services or contractual discounts that are provided within the provider network, subject to the requirements of subsections B and C of this section. And subsection B would allow, when a contract is entered into, or if there are material modifications, or if a contract is sold, leased, or renewed, it would allow the dental carrier to choose any provider that's part of the carrier's network to choose not to participate in third-party access. And so that would allow, if you're a dental carrier who's in network, it would allow that provider to choose not to participate in third-party access. So if the dental network were expanded, then that dentist could choose not to participate in that agreement, and they could essentially opt out of the lease agreements, and it would not require the dentist to cancel or otherwise end that contractual relationship with the original carrier that leases a provider network. And it would also allow a contracting entity to grant a third-party access to a provider to a provider network contract or the contractual discounts if that contract specifically states that they're entering into an agreement with third parties, and it would allow those third parties to obtain the contract entity's rights and responsibilities, and the dentist would have the right to choose not to participate in that third party access. Additionally, this would, on subsection D, would allow the provider not to be bound or required to perform dental services under this provider network contract that's been granted to a third party if there's a violation of sections 1 through 4. And it would also specify in section 3, which begins on page 5. Oh, and I should note that original section 3 was amended out of the bill, and it related to prior authorizations, and that was amended out of the bill, stricken in House committee amendments. So now section 3 relates to virtual credit cards, and if a dentist is performing services and that payments use virtual credit card payments, the plan would be required to notify the dentist if there's any fees with that payment method and advise the dentist of available methods of payment in selecting an alternative payment, and notify the dentist if the dental benefit plan is sharing a part of the profit that's charged by that credit card company. And in subsection C, it would not allow a benefit plan, so it would prohibit a dental benefit plan from charging a fee to solely transmit a payment from a dentist unless the dentist has specifically agreed and consented to such fee. And subsection D provides that the provisions of this section related to the credit card, virtual credit card payments cannot be waived by contract. And if there's anything in this section that would be waived, it would make the contract void and unenforceable. and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Jenna, thank you. Committee, do we have questions for Jenna on the bill? She wanted really tough technical questions, so. Okay, not seeing any. Jenna, thank you very much. Committee, we'll now turn to our proponent testimony. Our first proponent is Kevin Robertson, Executive Director for the Kansas Dental Association. Kevin, welcome to the committee.
Robertson, Executive Director of the Kansas Dental Association, and it is my pleasure to be here and appear before you today in support of House Bill 2386. First of all, Jenna did a great job. There are some complexities, but really the bill has to do with transparency and options. Transparency and options. It is, first of all, it's an NCOIL template, and it's been vetted nationally as well as already on the House side. And we may ask you to vet it a little bit more to help us with that as we move forward, as you hopefully will work the bill here in the next couple days. So first of all, on the national level, the American Dental Association and some of the dental carriers got together to put forth this NCOIL template that came forward. And that template came forward with 3 issues. Those have to do with network leasing, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more today, as well as virtual credit card. And those are the issues that are still in the bill. A third issue regarding prior authorization and how an insurance, first of all, how a provider makes a request on prior authorization on behalf of their patient, and then how that might be honored or paid in the future. Through some discussions here on the state level between the Kansas Dental Association and the state's largest dental provider, Delta Dental of Kansas, we did agree to strike that language from the bill. So that's why it has been stricken. That was part of an agreement that we had with the dental carriers. And I believe Mr. Bill Sneed will testify just about that process here in neutral testimony a little bit later. As we move forward and the bill came out of the House, we did hear from folks at Visa, the representatives for that particular company. They have some concerns with Section 3 on page 5, lines 34 and 35, which have to do with a notification of the dental carrier to the dentist if that plan is receiving any fees associated with the credit card. I believe Jenna mentioned that. So we are going to ask on their behalf to have that stricken too as we move forward, as a further compromise on the bill and a concern that was expressed after that bill came out of the House. So that leaves really the 2 issues that are left that I'd like to address. And then also Dr. Jill Jenkins, president of the KDA, and Dr. Alan Rivas Alan's with me. Dr. Rivas is here with me in person, and Jill will testify virtually and talk about how this works in their particular office. So anyway, so network leasing. So let's start with that particular issue. As it was explained, let's say a dentist goes, they're in a provider network with a particular insurance carrier, and that insurance carrier may very well sell or lease their network to a third-party insurance company. So really what happens is a patient may show up at a dental office and a dentist has no idea that they were even in that particular network that this patient is now has with them. So the agreement, how that works with the reimbursement rate, all the contractual arrangements can be completely different than what the dentist originally signed with the original provider network. So, a dentist goes through a provider network, they decide, okay, the reimbursement rate for these services is going to be, maybe it's 70%, maybe it's 65%, whatever the percent of their normal customary fees are. They think, okay, that's okay. We're going to get a group of course, patients as part of that. They sign that and they move forward. Well, then maybe 2-3 years down the line, there's people that they don't know that are in a network that they were not aware of. So the bill, again, as described, it requires the contract for that provider and for that provider network to allow a dentist to opt out of any future provider networks, and for that particular dental carrier then to allow the providers to be aware of these particular possibilities. So you can either opt out of the network in the contract or right up front when you sign that, Or in the future, you'd have to be notified if your network was being sold, and then you'd have the opportunity to opt out at that time. So again, transparency and options for those providers as they move forward. The other issue that is still maintained in the bill is virtual credit card. Now that's maybe not the right terminology, but it has to do with an electronic process by which a dentist is paid for their claims that are filed on behalf of the patient seen through that dental carrier. So what happens is a dentist in a local community, again, they work in a network. Let's say they're out, could be in any community, doesn't matter, but there's a business that, I don't want to hold anybody out here. So let's say they're dental carrier A, and the people in that particular community all belong to work in an employer for that company. So the dentist wants to be part of that network, right? That's in order to serve their community. Well, they will go ahead, they treat patients, and now they are paid for those services. Again, let's say 65, 70% of their actual fees. And now when they're paid and submit those claims, they get paid by an electronic means. We call that virtual credit card. So dentist then gets faxed a number, they dial in that number, and then there's a 5% or some number, 2 to 5% fee associated with that. So you've already agreed to see patients at a fee less than that, what your fees would be, and now you get paid, and there's a fee associated with the way you're being paid. Now, can be efficient, it can be very efficient, but again, the bill then says allow those providers the opportunity to know if there's a fee associated with that particular form of payment, and then allow them to opt out and provide other methods of payment that do not have fees. So again, we would like to move forward with that particular legislation. Again, we're talking transparency and options on both of those particular issues. I know Dr. Rivas and Dr. Jill Jenkins will talk a little bit more as to how that works in their office and the fees associated with that and how that affects their patients. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for any questions at the appropriate time.
Kevin, thank you for your testimony. And committee, we will hold questions until all proponents have had an opportunity to speak. Committee, our next proponent is Dr. Alan Rivas. Dr. Rivas, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Hillebrand, Vice Chair Gossage, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Kansas dentists and our patients today. I'm Alan Rivas. I've been practicing dentistry in Atchison for about 37 years. I'm the immediate past president of the Kansas Dental Association, and I've been on the State Dental Board, and I was former president of the State Dental Board, so I've dealt with several of these issues in different aspects over the years. I'm asking for your support and passage of House Bill 2586 favorably out of committee. The two things I'll be addressing today are network leasing and virtual credit card. The network leasing is a serious concern regarding patient fairness and transparency. And Kevin explained kind of how it works. I'll add to that, what happens in our office is the patient who we've grown to develop a relationship with, is trying to figure out their benefits. We're trying to help them figure out their benefits, and it's a moving target. The other issue is we're not able to always get into the network information for the patient, and so it gets tough to find out the answers. So it's just a very big hurdle for good patient care. They've got a need and they're trying to get it treated, and they can't get it treated until we can solve that problem. The dentist never has an option to review or consent to the network. It's unfair to patients to believe they have coverage and they can't get answers from a faceless insurance company. So our dental staffs are tasked with trying to navigate through the confusion. Their hands are tied as well. It does not help the patients or our ability to determine benefits. Correcting this should not cost anyone, but it should bring fairness and transparency, which is what we want for our patients. Please join the other 24 states that have already passed this legislation to stop this practice. I would also like to address the virtual credit card issue. In the past 37 years, I've watched the insurance write-offs in my practice increase from 2 or 3% in 1984 to 20% or more in 2019. That's the latest data I have. We're small business owners. The margins are thinner all the time with interruptions and the cost increases because of COVID, pandemic, and now this additional fee. I feel the dentistry is under attack. Insurance companies tell us to write off some of our fees and they pay out the credit card up to 5% more on the reduced fee we already negotiated. This means a further reduction in profitability. This affects our staff, the ability to give raises, the ability to expand our opportunities for our patients for treatment options. It only gets worse when you learn often they get a rebate on what they've already charged you from the credit card company. This is not sustainable or not fair to our dental offices or to our patients. With today's technologies and the simplicity of electronic claims and e-payment systems already in use, why is this happening? Profits for the insurance company is all I can think of. Please just mail me a check or do an e-payment like you've been doing for years. Incurring a fee after already taking a reduced payment is unfair. The change should not affect patient premiums, but return a fair reimbursement to the dentist and make it easy for our patients to get care. Please join the other 16 states that have passed this legislation and support House Bill 2386. Thank you. I'll stand for questions.
Rivas, thank you very much. Committee, our next proponent is Dr. Jill Jenkins. Dr. Jenkins, welcome to the committee, and she's with us virtually.
Thank you. It's my honor and pleasure to represent the dentists in the state of Kansas as president of the Dental Association this year. While I really regret not being able to speak to you in person today, I appreciate the accommodations made to still be able to share my thoughts on the relevance and necessity of Senate Bill 2386. As a practicing dentist and small business owner in Kansas for almost 22 years, and a specialist in pediatric dentistry for the last 17 of those years, I've always centered my small business around one main priority, the patient, so that every system or procedure we develop is focused around the best patient care outcome for the children we serve. However, there's a lot of obstacles to providing ideal patient care, and sometimes those come from the patient themselves. As a pediatric dentist, you can imagine the fear and apprehension of children can be a major obstacle, and then as a business owner these days, everyone's all too aware of the obstacles to retaining and hiring employees across all sectors right now. So those obstacles are simply part of the process and the privilege of owning a business and serving patients. But the issues discussed in Senate Bill 2386 are more than obstacles to patient care. They're roadblocks to a successful dental-patient relationship. But the simple changes presented in this bill can have a major impact on the dental patients of Kansas. So as a pediatric dentist, I have an obligation to treat all children regardless of their socioeconomic status or type of insurance. But it's imperative to balance that as a small business owner with the oversight and choice in the insurance companies that I participate with. So while trying to decipher dental insurance, as I've learned as president of the KDA, it can be overwhelming. I came up with a real-world example. So imagine you own a grocery store and you agree to a coupon with your canned food supplier. And you say, okay, I can support 4 cans, buy 4 cans, get 1 free. But lo and behold, at the end of the month, you review your reports and realize that that coupon was extended to 2 other canned goods suppliers without your knowledge or consent, and their coupon was buy 4 cans, get 3 free. So without your knowledge or approval, signing up for that one coupon allowed that company to fall under a larger umbrella of companies that significantly discounted the agreed upon price. In dentistry, a similar problem is occurring, as dental insurance carriers are currently allowed to lease their existing provider network to other third-party entities without the knowledge or permission of those provider dentists. As such, I unwillingly can become a provider to other insurance companies whose policies and reimbursements I'm not familiar with or know anything about. So you can imagine going through the steps of welcoming a new family into your practice. There's a lot of background, significant time and resources that go through to get prior records, understand the medical history, acclimate a family to the practice, and then lo and behold, find out that they have an insurance that you're unfamiliar with that pays you less than the cost it took to generate that appointment. Now I have to go back to the family and let them know that while we spent all this time together and I really wanted to welcome them into my practice, it's an untenable relationship with the insurance provider that they have. It puts me in a bad situation and makes me look like the greedy dentist. So, unfortunately, the patient also suffers by being left to try to navigate the process of finding a new provider for their family and getting the necessary treatment that was already diagnosed. Senate Bill 2386 will prevent this from happening by providing transparency to the process by allowing the dentist to opt out of a potential leasing based on the original insurance agreement while still maintaining the coverage agreed to with the original network. Basically, if I agree to a buy 3, get 1 free coupon, that agreement can't be altered without my permission. The second aspect of this bill addresses how a dentist can be paid by an insurance carrier. I think Kevin and Alan both did a good job of explaining this. Instead of basically deciding to take a calculated loss on a credit card payment from a patient as a point of sale convenience, dentists are being forced to take an unnecessary loss, sometimes up to an additional 5% than what was originally contracted to. I'm going to be honest, many young dentists are just happy to get paid and have no idea that there are other ways to get reimbursed just as quickly through other means like automatic bank deposits or EFTs with no additional costs. According to the ADA, the advantage to insurance companies is that an incredible amount of royalties is rolling into them through their credit card processing relationships. And how does this affect the patient? Well, this issue hits home for me because we have been accepting virtual credit cards for years in my practice. We simply assumed we had to accept whatever payment was presented by the insurance carrier and had no reason to think otherwise. I wish I would have known better. When we finally realized what was happening last year, as I began digging into this bill, my team started calling each insurance company that was utilizing this payment method. Often we had to wait on hold for up to 30 minutes with each carrier to tell them we never really agreed to this and didn't want it. It took another 3 or 4 months to call back 3 or 4 more times just to get off of the virtual credit cards. In my case, the virtual credit cards made the insurance company tens of thousands of dollars in royalties just for my practice alone, and cost me personally over twice as much in unnecessary charges. Thankfully, we caught the problem before we had to be forced to try to recoup those unnecessary charges by raising fees to patients. Senate Bill 2386 simply says dentists must be aware of the payment options for reimbursement upfront and with transparency, instead of finding out after the fact and jumping through hours of administrative hoops as we had to do in my practice. If you extrapolate my individual costs to our state level and nationally, imagine how many millions of dollars have been taken out of the hands of dentists, small business owners, and raising costs to patients. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Dr. Jenkins, thank you for your testimony. Committee, we will now open for questions for proponents. Do we have any questions? Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin, could you come to the mic? So my understanding in pulling up the bill that this is asking for notification. We're not requiring anything different, not getting involved in the insurance contract. I see that that Delta Dental is neutral, but I haven't had a chance to read the testimony.
Yeah, I would say it does require an insurance carrier, dental insurance carrier, to do some things different. I mean, to allow options and to make those options notify the dentist of those options. So it does require certainly a change with dental carriers. There's no doubt about that.
On a general nature, I like to respect private contracts.
Sure.
And the dentist has signed a contract with an insurance company, and vice versa. Can you tell me why it is that the Dental Association hasn't met with, or maybe I thought you said in your testimony that you did, had met with some of the insurance companies, especially here in Kansas, Delta Dental is a large one, and have come to an agreement, but then why do we need legislation for this? That's the part I don't understand.
Well, we have met with Delta. Again, Blue Cross of Kansas City, Blue Cross of Kansas were not involved necessarily in the initial discussions that we had with Delta, but they did agree to the language as it was put forth in the House. So we have done that. You know, dental contracts, provider contracts are a little bit different. I mean, it's kind of a take it or leave it sort of situation. And we think it's important that our providers are aware of what the options are. And they have transparency when they're signing those contracts. And I believe, at this time, I know, I guess I'll let Bill Snead talk about that with Delta, but I think they would agree with that, and we'll testify to that as well, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Petty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a question for Dr. Jenkins.
Yes.
Thanks for being here virtually. And you mentioned within your practice, so a patient comes in the door, and I'm trying to understand with this bill how will that help you to know, have a better understanding of what kind of coverage they have?
Great question. So say I sign up with Insurance A, and Insurance A then has an umbrella that they contract with Insurance B, C, D. I'm only aware that I'm accepting Insurance A. So a patient comes in, in my case, it's kids, so I have a family, I have 4 or 5 people. We see them, we say, okay, here's your estimated payment for today. Then all of a sudden, no, I'm actually in contract with an insurance that I was unaware with. So I now have accepted payment based on a fee schedule that I assumed was right, and then all of a sudden I'm reimbursing and paying the patient back because no, they had an insurance that I just completely didn't know that I would not have accepted because the fee schedule doesn't support, what I need to pay my employees and overhead and everything like that. Does that make sense?
So that would be, it does, so that would be that section D, so it can't be, the network can't, contract that has been granted to a third party, you wouldn't then have to.
Correct. I would know upfront if insurance carrier A had other insurances associated with it that I would be required to serve those patients as well.
And then my second question is dealing with the virtual credit card. So I, as a patient, I really won't know about this at all. This sounds like it's directly the reimbursement that's coming to you, and the charges on that credit card are continued to be changed without your knowledge. Is this correct?
That's right. So when, after we see patients, insurance will send us a bulk check, they'll do direct deposit. And so sometimes they'll send us, truly we get faxed a piece of paper with insurance, with a credit card code, and you key it in, and that's how you get paid. But I think a lot of dentists are unaware that then come the end of the month, when you get all of your credit card, you get your credit card statement, you've now paid an additional 3 to 5% on that money that you were paid from the insurance company in credit card fees. And if people just were aware of that and could say, you know what, I'd really rather prefer direct deposit, or I'd prefer a paper check, then there's no reason that those fees are necessary. But without knowing it, you just unknowingly take those fees sometimes for no good reason.
Thank you.
Senator Steffen.
Thank you. This is probably more of a statement than a question for Dr. Jenkins and Dr. Rivas. The independent practice, the small business owner aspect of dentistry is a national treasure. It really is, and it's difficult, and it's critical to the health of healthcare provision in the United States. We've lost that in the medical side to a large degree. We're a lot farther down the road. And I hope, and I'm getting the indication, that the dentists are learning from the mistakes the medical doctors made with the insurance companies. The insurance companies become predatory, particularly on small businesses. They bring so much at you that you can't wade through it. And it's very much moved doctors out of private practice. And in our average communities, when you start breaking up these small businesses, you start losing employees, you lose jobs in the community, and you lose independence of the provider. Frankly, I came in here not understanding what this bill was about, but this is about transparency. This is about putting these dentists on a level playing field with an entity that becomes basically predatory over time. So I'm thrilled that they're here. I'm thrilled that they're asking for help, and it is much, much needed.
Committee, no further questions. We will now turn to neutral testimony. We do have one neutral, Bill Sneed, Legislative Counsel for Delta Dental. Bill, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am Bill Sneed, appearing today on behalf of Delta Dental of Kansas. After hearing the testimony of the proponents, you would think someone forgot to tell them that on the national level, we worked with them on this legislation. On the state level, we worked with them on this legislation to try to correct some of the issues that were out in the field, so to speak. But we made an agreement with the Dental Association. We're going to stick with it. We appreciate Kevin reaching out to us last fall. As he mentioned, this bill came about through NCOIL, National Council of Insurance Legislators. It was worked by the National Dental Association, the AHIP, the National Trade Association for Health Insurers, and the National Association of Delta Dentals. And basically, you know, got through it all and reached an agreement. Then when Kevin and his group decided to introduce it, they again reached out to us, and we appreciate that. It's much better working together than fighting all the time. We did request one provision to be taken out. I think it's a genuine difference of opinion on language. The model bill, and in fact, it was the one issue that was not resolved at the national level, was that language. You know, we tried a bunch of different ways to try to come up with language we both could agree to. We couldn't, and both sides agreed the bill was important enough to just take that out and continue to work on it in the future. So, like I said, we appreciate the Dental Association working with us. We stand ready to work with them in the future on other bills, and be happy to answer questions at any time.
Bill, thank you for your testimony. Committee, questions for the neutral? Senator Gossage.
Bill, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'll just mention up front, the dentist I've had for 40 years doesn't take any insurance, and it seems a lot easier that way. So you guys met, you decided on this, and I serve on the Health Committee for NCOIL, so I certainly understand that, and took out the egregious portion, and you're in full agreement of this. And again, brings my question. My concern is, as a senator, is there are people who feel like that we have to come to the government to fix things, and I'm just like, why can't you privately work things out together? You explain to me why
Well, it's one of the reasons.
feel it needs to be a bill.
I beg your pardon.
No, that's okay.
That's one of the reasons why most of these components, from my client standpoint, was easy to come to an agreement on. For the most part, we don't have a problem with this. We don't lease out our networks. Once we became, and the credit card deal, you got to keep in mind, that isn't us. I mean, that's the credit card company. And once we became aware of what was going on, we've been working to try to get that resolved out in the marketplace. So from our standpoint, yes, we try when we find there's a problem, because, you know, our dentists are our lifeblood and for our insurers. So we want to work with them in the future, and I think that's a very good point. And we do stand ready in the marketplace there's a problem, trying to work on it and not come to the legislature.
We appreciate that. And one final question. So, yes, it's the credit card company, but sometimes we all know that the cost is the cost, and they try to build that into whatever the cost is. It sounds like you were trying to be transparent by saying, here's the cost of the credit card. Do you give options for them to receive a check, a paper check, or a direct
Yes, we do.
deposit?
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
So you do give those options?
Yes, yes, we do.
What I understand this bill is saying is that they're going to require that they have options, and they're going to require transparency.
And we do it already, so we're fine with it. So we're neutral.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, seeing no further questions, we do not have any opponent testimony on this, so we will close the hearing on House Bill 2386. And just a comment from the chair to the conferees, the proponents and neutral, and probably was an opponent until that got stricken. It's always good to see that the issues get worked out before they come to the committee, so it makes it a lot easier for us. So we appreciate that. And with that appreciation, we will plan on working this bill tomorrow with the requested amendment. So Kevin, if you will get with Jenna, make sure we get that amendment. Oh, you already have it? So we'll plan on working this tomorrow. So committee, if you have anything else on that, we make sure you get everything to Jenna. So with that, we're going to start working on a couple of bills. The first bill is Senate Bill 155. This shouldn't take very long, I'm hoping. Jenna, if you could just give a quick refresher on what 155 is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Jenna Moyer, Advisor Statutes Office. Senate Bill 155, excuse me, would expand the newborn screening services and increase transfers from the Medical Assistance Fee Fund to the Kansas Newborn Screening Fund. We had this hearing on March 3rd, and I think one of the biggest changes of this bill is that it would expand the amount that is currently done through a budget proviso that this program is allowed to spend from $2.5 million to $5 million.
Committee, what is the pleasure of the committee? Senator Petty.
I'll make a motion that we pass this bill out favorably for passage and put it on the consent calendar.
Okay, we have that motion. Do we have a second? Anybody want to second that? Okay, that looks like that will die for lack of a second. So what is the pleasure of the committee on this bill?
Mr. Chair,
Senator Gossage.
I move that we pass the bill favorably out of committee.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Senator Gossage to pass this bill out, Senate Bill 155 out favorably for passage. Second by Senator Petty. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, no. That motion is carried. So Senate Bill 155 is going out. My intention was to work House Bill 2280, but the carrier of the amendment that we were on is not here. So in fairness to her, I don't think we should work on her amendment without her being present. So we're going to skip over 2280. We will work it tomorrow. So if nobody is here for their amendment, we will still work the bill. So hopefully everybody will be here tomorrow. So we will now move to Senate Bill 489. Jenna, can you give us a quick update on what Senate Bill 489 is, please?
Sorry, I thought I heard someone with X. Senate Bill 489 would provide additional restrictions to the regulatory authority of the Secretary of KDHE as well as local health officers regarding controlling infectious or contagious diseases.
And I do know we have at least one amendment, so we are going to work Senate Bill 49. What, anybody want to offer an amendment? Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment if Jenna can pass it out.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and start since I know our time is short. With your permission.
Go ahead.
It's actually very simple. Where it says may issue an order requiring, we change that to recommend. We have heard from many of our constituents that they would like to be treated like adults and know what is the medical information that's coming out of the department and share with them what is recommended. by their local health officer, and so it's a very simple change required to recommend.
Yes, Jenna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Jenna Moyer, Revisor's Office. And this section amends KSA 65-129B. We had already stricken the mentions of the secretary, and so this relates to mostly quarantine of individuals exposed to infectious or contagious diseases. So what it would change that power to require that quarantine to being recommending a quarantine period for individuals who have been exposed to those infectious or contagious diseases.
Thank you, Jenna.
And Senator Gossage, was that your motion?
It is.
Okay. We have
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move my motion.
have a motion on the floor by Senator Gossage and a second by Senator Thompson to adopt this amendment. Any discussion on this amendment before we take it to a vote? Senator Petty.
So now with this change, this now means that no one in the state, because this, the original bill already struck secretary, now we have local health officials that in their community where there's an outbreak of a contagious infectious disease cannot require any individual to quarantine. They can only recommend. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Senator Petty. Yes, that would be correct. No one in the state would have the authority to require anyone to quarantine in regards to an infectious or contagious disease.
I find this very troublesome and neglecting the health and safety of the citizens of Kansas. I oppose this amendment.
Any further discussion on this amendment before we take it to a vote? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Would the noes like to have their votes recorded? So noted. Okay, do we have any other amendments for Senate Bill 489? Okay, what is the pleasure of the committee? Senator Thompson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I propose, or I move that we pass Senate Bill 489 as amended out favorably.
I have a motion on the floor by Senator Thompson, a second by Senator Gossage to pass out Senate Bill 489 as amended favorably for passage. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 489 as amended is going to the floor. Would you like to have your noes recorded? And I'm sorry. Would the noes like to have their noes recorded? Okay, so noted. Committee, wow, we're making pretty good time. Senate Bill 460. Do we have any amendments on this one? Okay, Jenna, would you give us a quick refresher, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 460 is a bill that was requested in committee by Senator Baumgardner, and it was requested in a tax by Senator Baumgardner, and this would create a program to allow for child abuse or neglect investigations, and it refers to a CARE network, which is a specialty team and a network that does these specific evaluations and examinations of children who have been alleged to be victims of abuse or neglect, and it would allow for payments for those more intensive evaluations to be done.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the committee? Senator Thompson.
I'll move we pass out Senate Bill 460 for passage favorably.
Have a motion on the floor by Senator Thompson to pass out Senate Bill 460 favorably for passage. Do we have a second? Senator Gossage seconds that. Any discussion on this motion before we take it to a vote? Senator Steffen.
As a physician, I did find the testimony not particularly compelling. We heard from a physician who is in a very new, a very unique specialty. I found the data not impressive. I think this is going to be an expensive program that brings little to nothing to the table.
Senator Petty.
Did we ever get an updated fiscal note on this? I did have a note on that.
I thought they were working on that and had gotten one. Did they not? Or was I thinking of a different bill? Oh, okay. So there is one online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is one fiscal note on SB 460. There is a companion bill that is not quite a mirror in the House, HB 2632, that had a revised fiscal note issued. So that might be the difference between those. But it's not a mirror bill.
Could you give us that House bill one more time, please?
2632.
Thank you.
So do we have, what was the fiscal note then?
Fiscal note on SB 460 KDHE reports enactment of the bill would result in expenditures of $819,100 in FY 2023, all from SGF.
Senator Stefan.
Would it be in order for me to make a substitute motion to table this bill until we can gather further data in the future?
A substitute motion to table is in order. So that motion, that's your motion. Okay, we have a substitute motion on the floor by Senator Stefan to table Senate Bill 460. Second by Senator Petty. Any discussion on this motion before we take it to a vote?
Actually, I'll just withdraw my original motion and make it that, if that's easier.
Already.
Because I think it's a wash. It's probably a good idea. I would agree with that.
Okay, does the second consent to the withdrawal? Okay, so that original motion was withdrawn, and we will wait and see if we can get the updated information tomorrow. Committee, that does wrap up everything that I have that I think is ready. So with that, do we have anything further come before the committee? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.